It wasn't much of a game, and Michigan State's program right now is in a free fall, Mark. There's only two teams that haven't won a game since September: Arkansas and Michigan State, and meaning Power Five teams that haven't won a game since September. It's Arkansas and Michigan State, and Arkansas already fired their coach. And if you look at where Michigan State's program is at right now, all the off the field problems they've had, the recruiting problems they've had. You look at this team this year, and pretty much everybody that's a name you would know that's good on this team will be gone next season. We don't have the depth waiting in the wings to replenish that many guys, and I think they might have the toughest schedule in the Big Ten if you're looking at 2020 schedules for next year. So Michigan State's kind of at an existential crossroads, and this game was kind of for their program what Michigan's games in 2013 and 2014 against Michigan State were, where they kind of put the final nail in the coffin of the Rich Rod, Brady Hoke era. And I think you saw Jim Harbaugh do that to Mark Dantonio on Saturday. Whether it ends after this season or not, the era of Sparty football as we have known it, which was tremendous. This is probably the greatest run they've ever had, or certainly it's up there with what Duffy Daugherty and Biggie Munn were doing half a century or more ago. But I think this era now is at an end, and I think it'll be fascinating to see what happens to them in the future. And I say all that because I do think you have to at least include some of that in the analysis.
You used the word fascinating. I was thinking the same exact term because I'm fascinated by a couple programs in each conference, and Michigan State was not one of those a couple years ago, but they quickly have become that, in that because of what you've outlined in recent weeks, what's happening to this program. Mark Dantonio is, I'll drop him shy of all-time great coach, but legendary coach there, the best coach that they've had going back to the 60s, as you outline. That is he going to be the guy that, and we see this in a number of legendary coaches' tenures where they do most of their damage in the front half to three quarters of their tenure, and then they are allowed to kind of ride it out. Is he going to be allowed, has he gained that kind of equity there that he's going to be allowed to ride it out, or are they going to say, we need to cut ties here, we've reached the end, and we need a fresh start with somebody else?
I can't answer that question because this is not a typical situation there. You have an administration that has been decimated by a Chernobyl-level event of their own making with Larry Nassar. You've lost a president, you've lost an AD, you've lost so many members of your administration. Like, these people have gone to prison, Mark, or have been indicted. You just had a member of their board of trustees resign last month, still upset that the school that she didn't believe was being forthcoming enough with what was happening or what happened with Nassar and that cover up. The Lansing State Journal just ran another piece in the last 4 or 5 days going after the university for this. They're still making cash settlements and payments. I would imagine they've got insurers that are covering a lot of that, but still you're talking about a lot of costs, a lot of outlays. And who even makes this call? You have Beekman there, the AD, who was an interim and now is promoted full time. But does he have the clout to get on the horn to all those donors and say, hey, if you want him gone, time to pony up? You have to think Tom Izzo is going to have a major say in this because he's essentially the athletic department right now, and him and Dantonio are besties. So this is as the great prophet Corky once said in the movie Waiting for Guffman, this is not going to be a clean cut, Mark. This is not a simple situation. It's really messy. I have no idea what kind of money they have, who's even making the decisions. Dantonio's doing a $4.5 million roster bonus, basically, longevity bonus on January 15th, and his buyout is more than that. So he is not walking away here without anything, and so they got to figure that part of it out. The Curtis Blackwell deposition after the season is over, and Curtis Blackwell, for your viewers that don't know, in every community, there's a couple of people that are the people you need to know to recruit that area, right? And in Detroit recruiting, it's Curtis Blackwell. He runs the Sound Mind and Sound Body Camp. He was really close to both Michigan and Michigan State for a lot of years. He got really close in recent years to Dantonio's staff while Michigan was kind of trending down. Dantonio brought him in to be a part of the coaching staff and helped Dantonio land a lot of those kids that were his highest rated class in 2016 that ended up being the class with all the assaults and everything else that destroyed his program. Well, they tried to make this Curtis Blackwell the scapegoat for this. And he said, I ain't the one, like Ice Cube said back in the day. So I'm not going out like that. So he's suing them and Dantonio And there's going to be a deposition where the judge said he can be asked any question under oath you would like. You have to think 3 things can happen there, as Woody Hayes once said, and 2 of them are bad, right? In that deposition environment. So I don't know what they do. I mean, I would imagine maybe a guy like a Luke Fickell, who's a Midwestern guy. But I think he might be like the only quote unquote hot name that would even look at this job. I mean, I know the Iowa State situation very well, as you know. Matt Campbell's not taking the Michigan State job. I'll just tell you guys all that right now, okay? He's not coaching at Iowa State forever. But if you think he's leaving one of the best athletic directors in the country who gives him everything he wants and a program that says, we will name streets after you if you go 8-5 again, if you think he's leaving that to walk into the aftermath of the Geiger counter that is Nassar, you got meth-laced Cheerios. That's not happening. Matt Campbell didn't get to where he's at as quickly as he did by making horse bleep decisions like that. All right. When Matt Campbell leaves Iowa State, it's going to be for a top 10 or 15 kind of job in the country. It's not going to be for a Michigan State program right now that is a complete and total mess. So I think the options are probably you bring Dantonio back for 1 more year just to make the cost cheaper. Because you don't have your administrative ducks in a row, or you give him his money, let him walk away, and you try to either bring in a Luke Fickell, whose buyout is probably minimal at a school like Cincinnati, where Campbell's buyout, by the way, is at least $6 million at Iowa State. You try to bring in maybe an assistant with ties, like a Phil Parker at Iowa, former Michigan State player, or you bring in a Pat Narduzzi, who, of course, had a huge hand in helping Dantonio build that program at Michigan State and is having some success at Pittsburgh. Options on the table right now for Sparty.
Steve, of course, you make a important distinction between what is a football mess at, let's say, a Florida State that may involve some culture, but it's basically an attitude outside of the football missteps versus an institutional issue.
What's happening at Michigan State limits your ability to be successful. At Florida State, what's happening there is a pain in the ass. With the elder board and the stuff they have there organizationally. But if you know what the hell you're doing, it doesn't stop you from being successful. All right. You can go to Michigan State and you may know what you're doing and still not be able to be successful. And oh, by the way, did I mention, you have Michigan and Ohio State right now, and you guess you could throw Penn State in there too? Yeah, sure you could. Those 3 schools on an annual basis are landing more 4- and 5-star recruits than the rest of the Big Ten Conference combined, Mark. I mean, the talent gap is widening. So unless you get lucky and James Franklin gets the USC job or something, you're going to keep tangling with them. Harbaugh's not going anywhere. Ryan Day's not going anywhere. Now you got Indiana signed a top 25 class last year. They think they found their program difference maker at quarterback. He's hurt right now, but he's just a redshirt freshman, so he's going to be around another couple of years. They're at least going to be respectable. Hell, they might beat us this weekend. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Tell me where there's a lot of upward mobility. So let's just go with Matt Campbell for a second. Florida State calls and Michigan State calls. The fact, first of all, that I am even having this conversation just shows people are drunk. But let's play it out. All right. You got a chance to your opponents are Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse. Those are your obstacles to being the next team besides Clemson. Or Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa. Oh, Minnesota's kind of good now. They're not going anywhere. That's maybe the youngest team in the Big Ten right now is Minnesota. Northwestern's having a terrible year, but they were just in the Big Ten championship game last year and won 32 games the previous 3 seasons combined. Purdue, I think, will be a force next season with all the injuries they're having this year. All those guys come back with the depth they built this year. I think they'll be one of the top programs in the West. Which is an easier path to the college football playoff for you? It's not even a debatable point. And that's even before we even look at recruiting bases and everything else. So
then we look at a Purdue program that's recruited much better and has a
They're signing top 25 classes now, right?
And oh yeah, that team that just beat you a couple weeks ago that we would have thought anybody was out of their mind had they predicted Illinois was going to beat Michigan State 3 months ago.